I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. My name is John Melvin. I serve as the Acting District Attorney of Cobb County. I'm here today to announce the indictment of 11 members and associates of the Bloods criminal street gang in a 74-count indictment under the Georgia Street Gang Prevention and Terrorism Act, the Georgia Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations Act, as well as multiple counts of armed robbery, aggravated assault, multiple weapons offenses, and theft offenses. The prosecutors in this case are Chief Assistant District Attorney Mike Carlson, Senior Chief Jarrett Usher, who together head up the gang unit, and myself. Before I outline the indictment, I'd like to take just a second to welcome here the members of the press who are covering this important indictment. As you're going to see, it involves multiple defendants, multiple crimes, and a host of victims. The indictment is consistent with Governor Kemp's directive to stop and dismantle gangs here in the state of Georgia. It also follows the Best Practices Act of the Georgia Gang Investigators Association, who's present here, that was developed by them as well as members of our office. No initiative against gangs and in favor of public safety of this magnitude can be accomplished without the tremendous partnership of law enforcement and prosecution. That is certainly true today. So on behalf of the District Attorney's Office, I'd like to express my deep appreciation for the departments and agencies who are represented here today. Cobb County Police Department Chief Mike Register, who will be addressing you after I close. The Cobb County Sheriff's Office. The Cobb County Cage Unit. Milledgeville Police Department. South Fulton Police Department. The Sheriff's Office of Baldwin, Fayette, Paulding, and Douglas counties. The Georgia Department of Corrections. The Georgia Department of Community Supervision, as well as members of the United States Marshal Service Southeast Regional Task Force. Before I begin the indictment, I'd also like to thank Chief Jimmy Calloway, President of the Georgia Gang Investigators Association, as well as GGIA West Region Vice President Ryan Folds. I'd now like to outline the charges that are contained in the indictment and provide some of the underlying facts. It's a unique indictment because this case stretches across multiple counties and deals with numerous crimes, defendants, and victims. The federal estimates of the blood criminal street gangs number them in the tens of thousands. Bloods, of course, have their beginnings in California, but have proliferated across the country, including Georgia. The subgroup that's under consideration, or the set of bloods that has its roots in Georgia, is known as the 1831 Pirus. It was brought to Georgia by one of the defendants in this indictment, Etheridge Mosley. He is the triple OG for this state. In addition to Etheridge Mosley, we've also indicted his lieutenants and the members of the Cobb County 1831. Membership, promotion, and rank in 1831 requires continuing escalations of violence and criminality. 1831 crimes here include armed robberies, aggravated assaults, and various weapons offenses, as well as participation in the sale and distribution of illegal narcotics here in the state. So as you're going to see in the indictment, we will prove that the individual defendants committed the actual acts. The engine driving the criminality, time and again, though, is the gang, specifically the Bloods. The indictment contains many crimes that law-abiding citizens fear most. The armed robberies, the other violent acts with firearms, with convicted felons engaging in this conduct time and again. It's important to note as well that because many of the crimes include robbery and theft, they're individual victims as well. They span all demographics, and we're going to stand strongly as their advocates to bring the perpetrators to justice. Importantly in this indictment is the triple OG, Etheridge Mosley, the leader of 1831, who brought that gang, the Piru gang, to Georgia in the 1990s. There is evidence that while in Georgia, he had California Blood members directing him while he is there. Additionally, I mentioned the leader of the Atlanta set of the 1831 Pirus, a man by the name of Malik Jose David. He was a key lieutenant to Mr. Mosley. In addition, we also have the Cobb County leader as well as the other members of 1831, as I have mentioned. The indictment contains 150, in excess of 150 predicate acts that embrace all the violence, all the firearms, the blood symbols, practices, and it contains their undeniable history of havoc that has been wreaked by the Bloods, the gangs across this state. It's one of the reasons why our Street Gang Act is so necessary. Street Gang Act tells us that the purpose of the law is to eradicate criminal street gangs which have caused a crisis of violence across our state. Together, these defendants will face hundreds of years in jail. And while that's true, this indictment ultimately is directed to take down as much of the blood Piru set as we could, so we can send an undeniable message that you're not welcomed in Cobb County and you're not welcomed in the state of Georgia. In some ways, this case can be summarized by the words of the leader of this gang, who, when picked up, said, "This is Cobb County's expletive." I wear that as a badge of honor. We're certainly proud of the achievements against gangs that this office accomplished under former District Attorney Vic Reynolds. The indictment demonstrates that the work's going to continue, that the people of the county and the state of Georgia can continue to rely on the office of the Cobb County District Attorney to aggressively combat Georgia's gang crisis. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Register and Jimmy Galloway of GGIA, and then we'll take questions. Chief Register.
Thank you. I just want to echo what DA Melvin stated. It truly is a partnership between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. You see that the extent of the indictments and the locations of the suspects that were arrested today, it's not just a jurisdictional thing. These gangs have tentacles all across Georgia, all across the United States, and in some cases globally. And it really does take a very strong partnership, not only with the law enforcement agencies, but also with our court system. And I want to thank you specifically, DA Melvin, for your leadership since DA Reynolds vacated the office and went to the GBI. Great partnership we had with DA Reynolds, and we'll continue to have that partnership with the Cobb County DA's office in the future. So again, I want you to understand the extent of the danger that gangs give to the communities across Georgia, here in the urban, here in the metro Atlanta area, and how it takes law enforcement 24/7 to address what the gangs are doing, because we find most of the, a lot of the violent crimes that are occurring can be traced back to gang activity. So again, I want to thank all the partners we have, and we couldn't do it without each other. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is James Calloway. I'm the president of the Georgia Gang Investigators Association. Our association did a survey last year where we discovered there was approximately 70,000 gang members and associates in the state of Georgia. I stand before you today to congratulate the Cobb County DA's office, Cobb County Police Department, Cobb County Sheriff's Office, and multiple jurisdictions today for these indictments. It's a fight, it's a crisis, it's not a manufactured crisis. Our state code section actually says that we're in a state of crisis. So we're here today to actually do something about this issue, and like the chief said, that most violent crimes are being perpetrated by gang members, as well as a lot of property crimes. So with that being said, it is my honor to stand with these gentlemen. We are here to fight gangs.
Thank you. Any questions?
How long are the accused gang members already in custody?
9 of the 11 are in custody. We have leads on the other 2. We executed search warrants this morning at approximately 5:30 and 6 o'clock. The search warrants and the arrest warrants that we executed yielded a lot of extra evidence that showed the gang ties too, as well as a number of illegal firearms and narcotics and other gang paraphernalia.
Were they all taken in without incident?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
How long has this investigation gone on?
The indictment spans since 2012, but the investigation itself has been going on for a number of months. We're able to go back and look at the history of the criminality of the organization, and because it fell within our statute of limitations, we included it in our indictment.
The indictment mentions Clay Road in Precinct 2 and Atlanta Road in Precinct 3 specifically. Is there some area, parts of those roads that were, why were they mentioned in specific? Were the arrests there, or?
Every gang has kind of a nexus or not quite a headquarters, but a central area that they operate in. But the 1831 Pirus have struck every single area of Cobb County, but they're most strongly concentrated in the area that's mentioned in the indictment.
For those who live in the county, what would you say to them about what kind of crimes this group was committing and how, if they didn't even run into these gang members, how it may have affected their lives?
The crimes that they committed are the most violent and heinous crimes of all, with firearms, armed robberies, aggravated assaults. It's a couple of the predicate acts, like the armed robberies, carry maximum of life in prison. So they are committing the most violent crimes that gangs can commit, and they're doing it solely for the purpose of raising dues that are required by the gangs or getting money to fund their gang activity. And we're going to do our best to put a stop to it.
Hey, John, was this a synchronized effort this morning where most of the defendants, officers swarmed their homes all at the same time with SWAT used in this situation?
Yes, and simply it was amazing. Every one of the agencies that are listed today helped participate in the takedown, because when you take down known violent gang members, you have to attack them with overwhelming force to take them down. So the agencies that I mentioned previously all assisted us in helping to take down the defendants across the state. We had arrest warrants executed in Milledgeville, Douglasville, and counties around the metro area as well.
So it all happened this morning, all at the same time?
Everything happened this morning. Yes, ma'am.
Video or pictures released this morning?
No, and I know that people would like videos and pictures of it, but because of the security concerns, we couldn't allow videos or pictures during takedowns.
And so earlier you had said that area, Clay Drive and Atlanta Road, strongly concentrated. Is that where most of their crimes were, or is that where they were kind of living and kind of hanging out, and that's were there crimes everywhere? Or?
The crime span all of Cobb County, but we do have concentrations of crime in certain areas, and certainly Precinct 2 and Precinct 3 were susceptible for this particular 1831 gang.
Did you say Precinct 2 and 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It was mostly taken into custody in Baldwin County and then brought here?
That's correct. And he's the one that stated, this is that Cobb expletive. The efforts of Cobb County through our recent indictments, our large indictments against the gangs, are starting to make an impression not only in Cobb County but across the state. We actually have documentation where some gang members are saying, don't go to Cobb, and this is a direct quote, they're handing out RICO like speeding tickets. So hopefully we're deterring the activities of gangs in Cobb's, but there's still a ways to go. I really do want to say thank you to our Cobb Cage unit, the Cobb Anti-Gang Enforcement Unit. They did a tremendous job in the investigation of this gang and in the investigation of the gangs that we've taken down previously. Very violent gang, and the takedowns today went off without a hitch, and I really appreciate that.
Hey, John, last question from me. The two people that y'all are still looking for, should we be concerned about these two guys?
I would be concerned about any known violent gang member, but we're going to do everything we can to get them into custody as soon as possible. Oh, there is one other thing I wanted to let y'all know. Yesterday was crossover day at the state legislature, and the House did pass Bill 424 that added human trafficking as a predicate to the Gang Act. Chuck Boring, who's with me right now, was instrumental on behalf of our office testifying, and if anybody wants to talk to him about that, feel free to, because he was very instrumental in helping get that through our House. And Lord willing, the Senate will pass it too. It's a great measure to add trafficking as a predicate offense, because that's one of the many acts that gangs are involved in, even here in Cobb County.
So the two that we should be concerned about, are there pictures of them that we can get to come out to the media, or?
I'm going to have to defer to our Cage unit, to the fugitive unit, about whether or not to release pictures on that. I'm just going to have to defer. I'm sorry. Anybody else?
Yes, I'm sorry for our tardiness.
Oh, that's all right.
Can you give us a brief description of how this all came about?
Yes, ma'am. Well, it started in the 1990s when Mr. Mosley came here from California with the express purpose of starting the gang of the Pirus here in Cobb County. The specific gang 1831 finds its origins in Nat Turner, because 1831 was the year that he instituted and was hung for instituting the slave rebellion. So the Pirus, which is a Cobb County blood derivative, came out here, and sometimes they'll have their own unique subgroup name. Sometimes they'll be Fruitine Pirus, sometimes they'll be Athens Park Pirus. The Pirus that are here in Georgia, this particular group, was the 1831 Pirus. He brought it to Milledgeville, it grew in Milledgeville, it expanded to Atlanta, and then it seeped over and crept over into Cobb County. So what we did with this indictment is to take out the triple OG, Mr. Mosley, some double OGs, the original gangsters, and the OG of Cobb County, as well as his subordinates and soldiers. And that's the accomplishment of this indictment, for which we're very thankful.
And what kind of crimes were they committing throughout this?
The indictment contains 4 different incidences that range from armed robbery to aggravated assault, various weapons offenses, and drug offenses. Those 4 incidences have included, according to our best practices, the concomitant street gang act charges, as well as it's all tied together with conspiracy RICO counts.
And I know you still have 2 people still on the run, but did you guys focus on just the top level, or say, no, these are people that are instrumental, these 11 or 13 people are instrumental in what's happening, so we had to focus specifically on them?
What we hope to do with this indictment is take out the Cobb County gang, as well as the leadership that led to that gang coming here to Cobb County, and that's what we've accomplished with this indictment, Lord willing, is to take out the Cobb County 1831 Pirus, as well as the 2 people, Malik and Mr. Bosley, who were responsible for it coming out to Cobb County.
And I know it sounds like a stupid question, but why is this so important that you guys tackle this group and remove them from the street?
It's not only important that we tackle this group, it's important that we stay vigilant and attack all the gangs, because we're in a state of crisis. And I know that there are other people who don't acknowledge that, but you're entitled to your feelings. You're not entitled to the facts. And here are the facts. In this state, we have over 70,000 gang members. And in our prison systems, documented gang members exceed 13,000. That's almost not even a crisis. That's an occupation. I mean, we're literally being occupied by a foreign army. And as long as these gentlemen are behind me, and I have children in our public school system, we're going to keep on taking this fight to them. And so that was the purpose of this indictment and each of the indictments that we draft.
Is there, besides the 2 people who are at large, is there a possibility that there could be more arrests? You all anticipate taking down more people?
You know, it's interesting with every indictment, once you make arrests, the phones start blowing up in your office with leads. So I never want to foreclose the possibility that we can take down more violent street gang members. If we get more leads and the evidence is there, we will increase this indictment. Yes, ma'am.
You probably talked about this already, but how did we get to this point? Was there an undercover investigation? Is that how we implicated it? Or?
Yes, ma'am. We have intel and information, without getting too deep into it, on various acts that have been occurring. We were able to tie it up once we saw the gang element in it. So we had several different activities and crimes that have been going on. When we saw the criminality of the gang, then the light bulb came on, and we were able to tie it up together in this RICO Street Gang Act indictment.
How big does social media play in the investigation? Because when I read over the indictment, I noticed they were citing Facebook specifically in these pictures some of the gang members' clothing that they were wearing.
Yeah, and if you're going to be involved in illegal behavior and you're going to use the internet to promote that illegal behavior, very similar to the prostitutes that were advertising on Craigslist, we're going to use it as an overt act against you. And so I'm appreciative for social media, because it allows us to identify various criminality acts and identify the gang members. So we're very thankful for social media, because it does play a big role.
Anything that you can say about sort of parents being worried about their children getting involved in
Yeah, it's really interesting that you talk about that, because I was at the legislature Monday, and I got to hear Ray Ham of the Department of Juvenile Justice speak. And what's kind of interesting is the Department of Juvenile Justice is for kids that have been taken away from their parents and essentially turned over to the state. And the statistics are really, statistics are really amazing, because children in the Department of Juvenile Justice who have gang involvements have 110% higher likelihood of attempted suicide. They have I think it was in the 20% higher likelihood of depression, and almost without exception, they come from broken homes. So you look at those societal influences, and it's kind of heartbreaking, because the kids are looking for something. They're looking to fill a void, and what's there is gangs. And that ties into something I heard in court not too long ago, where we have released an indictment in that same year charging 22 defendants. Every one of those defendants pled guilty, and what we saw immediately following that was almost a 50% reduction in gang-related activity. So these indictments and this aggressive approach that is championed by GGIA, that's enforced by Chief Register and our cage unit, it has real-world effects, and I mean empirically verifiable effects. So we're very thankful for that. So this indictment, we hope it contributes to being able to cut down on criminality in Cobb County.
Earlier you mentioned how some of the gang members in other areas are afraid of coming here to look at that Wednesday.
Yes, ma'am. We've actually got social media that we downloaded, and I kind of wear it as a badge of honor. Don't go to Cobb County. They're handing out RICO like speeding tickets in Cobb. And I'm proud to say that every one of those, quote, speeding tickets pled guilty, because they were. I mean, we do extensive investigations, and when they're involved in violent crimes, we're going to take you out using whatever tool we can, whatever legal tool we can. As a matter of fact, another of the defendants in this case made the reference that Cobb County is handing out RICO like Skittles. I don't care whether you call it speeding tickets, whether you call it Skittles. Yeah, we'll do it. We're going to bring every measure we can to take you down according to the best practices. Any other questions? All right. And if y'all have any questions about human trafficking and how that's a predicate act for the gang, Mr. Boring's right over here, and I know that he'd be happy to talk to you about that, because it's quite huge, and some of the stories that we've encountered are horrifying. And girls are 14, 15 years old. But thank y'all so much for coming out. Thank y'all so much for your time. God bless you.